Hi, everyone. Hi, Paul.
Hi Andy. Hi, everyone.
We have a cool topic here. We are going to talk about data, but only in the service of making cool stuff, making great stuff, focused on creativity. And I thought, Paul, first, it would be interesting for the crowd to know a little bit about your background and how you came to be sitting in that chair.
Sure. I started as a creative in creative agencies, Cliff Freeman, Crispin Porter, Goodby, that sort of thing, a very traditional creative upbringing. And then I think it was 2017 or 2018, I did a project where we used AI to find the most negative people in the world. So we sort of cross-referenced people who had left negative reviews across different sites, the most one-star reviews, and then we extrapolated that these people were statistically the most negative people on the planet. And in that moment, I was like, oh my God, this is going to take everything from me, this technology. And so I dove into it as hard as I could, and it was early, and there was no generative, there was no ChatGPT, but it had amazing capabilities to process data, and that's how we used it. We started building tools for strategy, and then GPT came out, and generative, and everything. You know, you've been listening to what happened all day, and so yeah, it came initially out of fear, really, that this was really powerful, and then over time it morphed into love and then hate again. And I think I'm now somewhere in the middle between love and hate of AI.
I'm pretty proud that I was not on that list of the most negative. So let's talk about that thing you brought up about about AI replacing you. You're here, so it did not replace you, but what about preserving the role of human creativity? How do you think about that in the campaign development process, in the ideation process, all the way through to production implementation? What I'm asking you really is, why are humans valuable?
I am pro-human, of the highest order physically possible. I don't believe AI is replacing us. I'm not one of those people. I think AI is like, to me personally, I look at it more like Photoshop. And I was old enough to kind of be around when Photoshop was early. And when it came out, it was terrifying for everybody. It was going to end photography, and there was not going to be photographers anymore, and imagery was going to be easy. And none of that happened because it's just a tool. And AI is a tool like other tools. I was just talking back there. And like, we can all make feature-length Hollywood movies on our iPhones right now, today. And no one does that. Because that's not the barrier to making a good feature-length Hollywood movie. It's not the access to tools anymore. It's talent, and it's creativity, and it's storytelling, and it's craft, and it's being interesting, and it's living an interesting life. And if AI can help you do that, to live a more interesting life, then great. Then it's really valuable to you. But if you're using it to replace the thinking and perspective you're supposed to have, then it's very bad. And we're all just kind of going to float to the same level again, and then it'll reset where everything looks the same. And then there'll be like a punk rock revolt against AI. People will throw the servers in the ocean. But I think, you know, I've been talking about AI for a long time, and I did a talk in Sarajevo in the early days, and it was way more about, this is bad. And this is going to take all of our jobs. And that's how it felt before it started to make progress. But then when you see the progress AI is making, I am in the other camp of like, oh, wow, it's moving pretty slow. And it's not getting that much better. Visual and generative, yes, getting so much better. But true AI, like the AI in ChatGPT that's pretending to think for you, is not increasing in complexity that much, and they know it, and they're sort of trying to hide that because there is no moat to AI. It's very easy to replicate, it's very easy to code, it's very easy to make your own things, it's very easy now to make an LLM. And so they are very much incentivized to tell you how good it is and how important it is and how it's going to replace you, and how you've got Sam Altman on stages saying 98% of marketing is going to be done by AI. And that's just not true. But he has to say that because he's raised $16 trillion. And that's probably not going to happen.
You've got a lot of words of wisdom about AI. One of the other leading voices that I was paying attention to the other day, the renowned AI expert will.i.am, who said, this stuff is not going to replace us because it is imagination regurgitation. Imagination regurgitation. Does that scan for you? Does that make sense?
I mean, it does. At its most basic, it's not making up anything new. And if it is, it's bad. You know, and that's like without wormholing, like that, you know, DeepSeek is a revolution in training and cost and efficiency of AI. But it's one big step towards model collapse, which is what you get when you're training AIs on other AIs. And that was sort of, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. OpenAI sucked up all of our data that we all made and all of our creativity and all of the stuff in the New York Times. And then DeepSeek were like, what if we just sucked that up? And that's bad. That's bad because now you have AI learning from other AI, which is one more step removed from the source material. And someone's going to train an AI, an LLM on DeepSeek, and then it's going to be 2, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then pretty soon it's like telephone. The information is degraded, and then it's not true, which is obviously bad.
Scary. Continuing my campaign not to be one of the most negative people on your list. So I'm really fascinated by the use of tools to help in the development of insights. So how we understand humans better. Ethnography has been around for a long time. Other strategic tools have been around for a long time. AI can have some interesting impact on that. Do you have any stories or things that you would relate about how to use tools to get deeper into what really is driving human behavior?
I think this is something that AI is very good at. AI is very good at collecting large amounts of information and synthesizing it. So when you're talking about, you know, strategy and audience insights and research, it's really good because you can get a group of people and you can get so much information on them, load it up into a little mini model or a GPT or whatever you're using, and then ask it questions. And so that used to take so long to do, and now that is so fast. And that information is good. You know, it's the same information you had access to before. It's just in a nice, neat little package that you can talk to.
Love it. So let's talk about that same aspect when it comes to collaboration, when it comes to bringing ideas to life quickly. I mean, that's why you get paid is ideas. AI is a fascinating tool that helps change that game, bend that curve a little bit. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm not a proponent of quick. I mean, we all move fast now, right? We're all moving faster than we did a couple of years ago. The industry's moving faster, speed of culture, all of those things, and obviously we do that. But sometimes quick is bad, and a lot of times speed is the thing that will kill your beautiful idea or your beautiful execution. With AI, you can move faster and better towards something great, especially in our business where so many parts of the process are just sharing. You know, you can have a great idea and then it's nothing if you can't share it with, you know, starting with your partner and then your creative director and then that person's creative director and then the client and then the client's client. Like if you don't get that right every time, that idea is not going to make it. And AI lets you basically take that idea to something that feels like finish, right? And for that first presentation to your partner or to your creative director. And then people can start building on the idea at that level of finish that early, and you get to much better, bigger, more interesting thoughts by the time you're sort of, you know, down the line. And that I think is one of the most powerful things about AI for our business is that we spent so much time comping and making assets that go nowhere, that are made to go nowhere. but they're necessary for the presentation and production of ideas, of good ideas. And now we've eliminated that, which I think is a good thing to eliminate. That was never a great thing about what we did. I think back to my time at Crispin, being there all night, writing something or designing something that had to go in the morning to a presentation, and you wanted it to be perfect because you wanted it to sell, and so you were willing to do anything to do that. And now art directors bring me stuff that they made in 2 seconds, and part of me is angry. But again, grateful that they don't have to do that. And I think that's been amazing. And you see that when you work with production vendors and when you work in Hollywood or adjacent industries, they're all using these tools to get great ideas and bring them to life as fast as they can. Because a good idea, it's on life support from the moment it's born. And so many people are trying to kill it. And this helps it not die, because when something is more developed, people have a harder time killing it. And when it feels raw and it feels loose and it feels sketchy, everyone feels like it's within their right to kill that thing. But when it's already done, it lives. And that's been the most powerful for us, and we are selling better stuff because of it. Because those clients that are like, I just have to see it, and then you'd hire an illustrator, and that takes 3 days, and then that's done. It's like, oh, here it is. And you can text it to them. You have the idea, and you're texting it to them 45 minutes later. And you're getting, oh, I don't like that. We can't do that because of X, Y, and Z. Or, oh, I really like that. Never, I just can't see it. And it's like, oh, well, how about this angle, or this angle, or this angle? So I think my hope is that changes what we do, and that changes the ideas that we can sell. Because we need that. It's, things are getting a little bit boring.
Well, we got to stop that right now. So, okay, flash forward. You've used certain tools along with the talents of your team to make great stuff, make cool stuff. You've also talked to me about some things with model building and using sort of a repetitive process to help bring you faster into make creative projects smarter, and it gets into the next project and the next. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, this is super cool, and I don't know how experienced everybody is with AI. If this is pedantic, I apologize. But a model is just a folder. It's just a folder that is smart. It's a folder that can understand the contents that's inside of it. And so when you drag stuff into that folder, you're building a model. And so when someone says, oh, we built a model, that's all they're doing. They're dragging things into a folder. Don't let them make it sound complicated. It's very, very simple. And you have to curate that folder, that model. It's like the most important that you curate it beautifully and perfectly, or else you poison it with bad data, and you don't want to do that. So you've curated a model, and it's now that folder is smart. It knows the contents. It can predict what those contents might do. And so if you do that for a project, we start projects by starting a model. And you basically train it on all the white papers and data you can get on that client, all the things that are valuable. You train it on all the consumer stuff. You put it all in one place. And now you start working. And everything you generate, all your concepts, all your creativity, all your art direction, all your design, it's going in the model. It's going in the folder. And so that folder is sort of moving with you across the project, and it's getting smarter and smarter and smarter. And then as the project completes and you have finished work, then you load in the platform data and the finished work into the model, and now it's even smarter. And so the next project, you're not starting over, you're starting from the knowledge of that folder, of that model, with everything it learned and everything it can predict. This is really cool for us because obviously you can understand just the benefits of that on a surface level, but people leave in advertising, right? You've got people leave the account, strategist quits and gets a better job, and often that knowledge leaves with them. It does not anymore. It stays in that model, and it's making decisions and predictions in a way that people just don't. And not ideas. It's just like you have an idea. You're like, oh, we should do this. And the model will tell you, no, we did that. It didn't work. Or that's not going to work. I don't think that's going to work because of this reason. and you can ignore it, but it's like having a super smart person by your side who's so intimately knowledgeable about that project that can answer almost anything. And like a really smart person, sometimes you ignore them and sometimes you don't. But we don't tend to, because it's usually right about that kind of stuff. This model will not give you ideas. It will give you ideas, and they are pure hot trash. But it will do that. It's capable of doing that. That's where you have to like have a little bit of integrity and say, I'm not going to use these shitty ideas from the model.
That's great. You've done some fascinating work yourself, but I bet you're sometimes jealous of work you see out in the rest of the world. Taking AI into account, what are some projects or some pieces of work that you're jealous of and would love to say, I did that? Anything come to mind?
In advertising?
Advertising, yeah. Or
oh man, I hate this question. Not really.
yeah.
And I don't mean that honestly negatively but no, like I feel like we're not in a good place right now as an industry, and we're not doing good work, and we're not living up to our potential, and we're not providing the value to clients that we should be. There is great work out there, and I'm sure I'm forgetting it on the spot. And there are great agencies, and there are great client relationships. It's not a disastrous situation by any means. But I don't think we're in our heyday, and I think we should be.
Let's say I'm a young designer, art director, copywriter, and I'm coming to you for feedback about how to advance my career right now today. What are some of the things that you would bring to the forefront?
I tell people who do bring me that question to familiarize themselves first with the fundamentals of this business. And if you're a creative, that means craft. That means learning how to write, learning how to art direct, learning how to design, learning about the good work that came before, learning what a brand is, how to position a brand, how to make a brand different. You know, all the things that maybe we take for granted that we're not talking about anymore because we're talking about AI all the time. But I think we should be talking about, because there's no point in optimizing and making cheaper mountains of garbage. So if we can't make good stuff, the AI can't help us optimize it and make it faster and make it better and make it cheaper and make it more beautiful. You've got to come to it with the fundamentals in place and with an interesting perspective. And so I usually guide people the way I did, 20 years ago. Get an old annual full of print ads and look at the simplicity in there. And that's where you need to be once you're sort of then approaching this technology, this amazing technology, with those fundamentals in your hand. That's my biggest fear, and it's across everything. Like, I worry that in 10 years I'm going to go to a surgeon that's learned everything from AI and doesn't actually know what they're doing. It's obviously the stakes are lower when you're talking about like a Pop-Tarts ad. But I also worry that copywriter is going to have no idea what they're doing, and they've only used ChatGPT, and they use the headlines that come out, and then the art director uses the art direction, and everything is just going to sort of level out. And we're going to lose the interesting perspective that we brought. Advertising is one of my favorite things in the world. And I think when we're at our best, we are better than Hollywood, we're better than venture capital, we're better than all of those things because we're quicker and we're faster and more interesting. We make culture over and over and over. That's really hard. But we're getting a little bit lost in this technology and what it can do, and we're losing sight of what we do.
Hell yeah. We have a couple minutes for questions. Kevin, do we have any questions so far?
I do have a couple. First of all, Paul, you mentioned that you're pro-human. Thank you. No question there.
He speaks for all of us.
Paul, one of the things you mentioned, I think you articulated it really well about how to create these models, right? Just what are the things that you need to put in there. But then it made me think, the person deciding what goes into there now might actually dictate how creative the model can actually be just by the nature of what gets included there. How do you guys kind of think about who and what should be involved in that process, and maybe even the timing of it?
It's a great question. I like to think about it the same as like the casting you would do for a project. So you got a new project in the agency and you're like, oh, this person, this person, this person are perfect for this. You're going to bring that same team together to curate what goes in that model. And you're going to, a lot of client input. You know, clients know their business a lot better than we do usually, and they are very good at what should go in that model and what represents their brand and what information and data they would like to see in there versus what they would not. It's not necessarily the time for creativity. It's the time to like put the foundation of your house in. You know, that's not the creative part of your house. That comes much later in the process when you're sort of doing creative development. And you can poison a model really, really fast. And I'm not technical, and there's probably people here that are a lot smarter about this stuff. But if you put bad stuff in the model, a lot of times you have to start over because they're really hard to unpoison. And so you want to be really deliberate about what you're training it on.
I think maybe an extension of that would be how involved is the client in that process? Or even in terms of access to the information in the model, are they asking to be part of that?
They are 100% part of it. That's a shared process where everybody has access to that model and what that model is capable of. So that way, you're all sort of, it's almost like a campfire, and you're sort of rallied around it, and you're having discussions, and you're talking about what's inputting and outputting. And it's a great way to increase collaboration. I find it actually makes the human part stronger and better because you're always talking. And you know, in the past, we would disappear, right? Our agency disappears. We go to the client, we get briefed, and then we vanish. And then we come back in 3 weeks, and we're like, yay, look what we did. And that process was fun, but now you don't need to do that. You're always there, always talking, always going back and forth. You're not getting lost. You're not coming back with something that's off because you're all looking at the same data and the same inputs and the same outputs. And it makes, when you go to present the creative, it makes it easier to sell crazy ideas because everybody feels invested in that idea and the journey that led to that idea, so that you're not going in there like a ta-da. Like, you know, it's really hard to sell stuff like that because people want to feel a part of something, and they deserve that. And they don't want to feel like they've hired some, you know, some minstrel that comes in and shows them some magic. They want to be deeply invested in what you're doing together.
One more question that came in here. How do you translate this message of need for creativity and great storytelling to a client who's hyper-focused on direct, immediate performance and ROI?
I work at a place called Tombras, and they are very, very, very good at performance and that sort of thing. I personally am not super knowledgeable on performance, but obviously, effectiveness is the goal. It's every single time. Effectiveness is and our strategy to get there is always creativity. So performance is important. And I believe personally that creativity, the more creative something is, the more interesting, the better it will perform. I'm not knowledgeable in the kind of performance of like optimization of little elements and that sort of thing. I don't use AI that way, but I know it's powerful. I'm just not the smartest person to speak on that.
I think that's a good point, though. If it's good creative, it should perform, right?
The long and the short of it, if anyone knows that work. Paul, we have 38, now 37 seconds. Do you have a soapbox that you'd like to climb onto? Anything you want to get salty about in 32 or 31 seconds as we wrap up?
Not really. I'm not that salty. I hope that together we all just start use this technology to take more risks, not less risks. And I hope that we don't fall into the trap of the 90%. You know, AI is great at optimization and all those things, but that's the 90%. The 10% of raw creativity and things that are genuinely new and interesting, that's really where our business lives and where we have value. More so than ever now that AI is here, where everybody has access to the same tool, including clients. Our value is to bring them something they can't do, and they can spend 20 bucks a month on GPT, but they can't come up with crazy, out of nowhere ideas that move their brand forward. They just, that's a hard skill, and we are all really good at that, and I think we need to remember that.
Thank you, man.